What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to our channel. We are here in Pearland, Texas with a local investor who's going to show us how to get started with Airbnb, a few do's and don'ts. Let's check it out, y'all.
Hey Aaron, how you doing?
What's going on?
Man, good to see you. Let's take a look at one of our Airbnb properties and see what one of our typical properties looks like, and then we can get into the business of Airbnb. So come on in, man. This is one of our Pearland properties that we have recently put on Airbnb over the past 2 years. Let's take a look at some of the things that are in the house that work for us for Airbnb. Everyone has their own process and how they run their Airbnb, and we'll talk a little bit about how we run ours and some of those processes. And of course, we can talk a little bit about how much money we're making with Airbnb as well. So real estate is our passion. We're real estate investors, and we have found a small niche in Airbnb, which a lot of people have, but we found something that works for us, and we're going to share it with you guys. So come on. We like to keep the house clean and neat and fresh, and that means whites, a lot of whites everywhere, and there's a reason for that. Have everything white. There's a reason. There's always a method behind the madness. So let's take a look at the living room. We have an outdoor living space as well, and all of these things just put you a little bit above your competition. So let's take a look. So as you can tell, the house is, we call it crisp and clean. It's as clean as any hotel, luxury hotel you would stay at is, and that is our goal, is to have people, when they come out of town, they're either here for medical treatments, they're here for vacation, they're here for birthday parties, anniversaries, you name it, we've seen all of it. And so we want to have this house in pristine condition all the time for our guests. And so we have an outdoor living space that people can sit outside, drink their morning coffee, listen to the birds chirp, because there's a natural area that's behind the house that there's no backyard neighbors. And so they can enjoy outside as well, and enjoy their stay. The house is located 15 minutes from everything, and those are part of the reasons that put this house to where it is doing performing. So it stays booked up. It's usually only open 1 or 2 days during the week, and that sometimes varies as well. So the house, fortunately for us, stays booked January to January. Last year in 2021, it did not miss one weekend where it was not booked out. And so those are the success stories. We know that there's that things can go wrong. We know that there's troubles. We know that this is a business, and if you treat it as such, then you understand what you need to do to keep the money flowing in when it comes to the hospitality business. So let's sit down a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about my background and how we got started into Airbnbs, and what the future looks like.
Hey everybody, so as mentioned, just wanted to sit down with Josh for a few minutes and talk about kind of his experience with Airbnb, maybe a few mistakes, a few triumphs, and really how to get into the game. And Josh, I'm curious about you. Out of any facet of the real estate business, why Airbnb?
Well, Aaron, we kind of stumbled onto it, and so I was explaining to you earlier when we were first talking. We invest in real estate. We use income that we have that we can spend extra to put that solely into real estate. And so it was my wife's idea to try it. I don't believe that I was going to try it at that point. And so she said, well, hey, let's try to put this house on Airbnb. And in my mind, all I thought was dollar signs. Like, what is it going to cost to furnish this house and then stick it on Airbnb for a what if? Like, what if it doesn't rent? I'm going to spend, essentially $7,000 to $9,000 to fully furnish a home and do touch-ups, and then it might not produce any income. And so we started it by accident, to be honest with you. Right. I took the knowledge that I have of customer service and the type of places I like to stay at, and I said, well, let me just create a luxurious stay with many amenities, and somebody will book it. And 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think we were talking a bit earlier kind of about your main gig, I guess your original gig, really funding what you're doing. This wasn't your original gig. You have another company that you're the head of, right?
Yes, and so I started a residential and commercial service company, and we are in a very small niche industry. And so I started there. I actually started years and years ago when I was in my 20s. may not look like it, but I'm touching 40. And I started there, and then I started my own company doing the same thing that I was already doing. And so I've expanded that company over the years to cover all of the Texas metropolitan area. So that covers Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin. We even service Corpus Christi down there. So as my business has grown, my need to have assets and investments has grown. And so I started, investing in real estate, which is my passion. Before I had the company, I studied real estate. Like I can talk to you about what real estate sold for 25 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's just part of my DNA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know briefly we spoke about kind of the selling versus renting aspect. Maybe for someone who's looking to get into Airbnb, or they have a big opportunity to do an Airbnb right now, how do you know whether to decide, hey, I should, build to sell, or, build this structure to be able to rent, or how do you know something is worth your time to build or sell?
So I knew that I didn't want to stay in regular rent. A regular rent was cash flowing. In certain properties, if you have a mortgage, it cash flows anywhere from $300 to $700 a month on the good side. And so if there's a mortgage in place, I knew that I didn't want to play that game. And so I took properties that were in good locations. Everybody has the BRRRR method, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And so what I did was I changed it to the BRRRR method, and that's buy, rehab it, and then Airbnb it out, and then repeat. And so personally, I don't carry notes on many of the properties, and that's just my personal choice, or mortgages. I'm sorry. So the income that Airbnb produces, some very normally doubles regular rent, and a lot of times triples regular rent. And so for an investor like me, what's more important is cash flow. And so as it's cash flowing income, I have properties that are in pristine condition all the time. To me, some of the other benefits are most of our family is out of town on my wife's side, and they travel here. We had a huge Thanksgiving time. That was actually Christmas time. A whole lot of family came in town, and they stayed at our Airbnbs because they all couldn't fit at our house. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so that's just one extra thing that we get out of the properties.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love the layout here. It's that clean white. It looks super modern. And yeah, it's you walk in, it's just very hospitable. There's plenty of room to sit or stand, to grill, hang out, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. So when you create areas like that, I call it, you look at your competition and then you make your place better than your competition. And so we were talking about Airbnb, the long-term effects of it, the short-term effects of it. And so I'm here to play the long game. And so as I own these properties, they're tools for me. If an opportunity showed up that I needed to pull money out of my tool, or I call it a toolbox, then I can pull money from my toolbox and fund a bigger deal. At the same time, it's always paying for itself. So it's essentially its own bank to a certain degree. But going back to what you're talking about on the looks of the place, we want it to be where when you look at our Airbnb versus the next person's, or somebody who is not necessarily seasoned or in Airbnb or hospitality, then you're going to pick this place over the next one. And I specifically look at the very close competitors. There's tools online that will allow you to see who your competition is, how much money they're making every night, how much money they're making a year. And that will allow you to make a business decision on this particular property. Like, this property is going to make me XYZ per year. And it hits like clockwork.
Yeah.
So I think some of the things, now mind you, not everything flows perfect. There are repairs you have to make. There are guests that are less than preferred, and so far we haven't had any big issues. I was telling you earlier, I probably had the biggest issue I ever had this past week. Like, the reason why we're able to be in the house right now is because I had to cancel the booking, and that booking was for a week for $2,000, and so that would be what this house would generate in regular rent income, and it did that in 1 week. And so the guests they didn't fit the bill of guests that we wanted here, and they wanted to leave, and I wanted them to leave, And so we worked out a deal that was amicable, and I actually refunded them the entire amount. I would rather keep my good reviews and keep our service levels high than over income. And I was talking to you earlier about that, about the long game. There's people that do rental arbitrage in Airbnb, and that's one method. With real estate, I think there's a vehicle for everyone. If you drive a Toyota Corolla or you drive an Escalade, real estate is that vehicle. So whatever you're trying to invest in, you definitely can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a lot to be said there. That's a big testament to, like you said, playing the long game, right? You could easily just said, hey, you guys can stay, no worries. But, like you said, amicably decided, hey, I'm going to refund you your money in full. And then obviously keeping those good reviews, right?
The reviews are everything in Airbnb. And there's a lot of do's and don'ts. I'm not the guru that's going to sell you a course on how to do Airbnbs, but I am a source of information that will say, hey, do this, yes, do that, no, don't do that. And there's always a reason for it. Like we talked about the white, clean, crisp look. Not only does it make the house appealing to people, but when it's time for touch-ups, it's all one color. It's a simple touch-up of one paint bucket and a brush, and it's all one color. There are certain types of sheens of paint you want to use. You don't want flat paint. Flat paint's going to leave marks on the wall really easily. You want your cleaning crew to be able to just go wipe it off with a rag, and now it's back to looking perfect. So there's a lot of reasons why you do things, and you kind of learn those things along the road, the bumps. For some of the houses now, the other ones that we have, we put our own made headboards. And the reason for that is people will lean on the wall with their head, and they leave a stain on the wall, or they'll bump it with something sharp and leave a mark in the wall. And so when you have a wood custom-made headboard, it doesn't cost a whole lot. That headboard is painted in a high-end paint that you just simply wipe off. It looks decorative, but it's there for a reason. It's functional as well. So those are a lot of things that we learned along the way. We learned, you've got to rotate your mattresses. You got to get rid of them. You can't keep an old mattress in a house. You just simply got to get rid of it. It's part of the cost of doing business. You can't have your yard in disarray. Everything's got to function. We put TVs outside so people can sit outside and drink their coffee, watch TV, or at night. And, that is something that puts your house one step above, but at the same time, you're able to charge just a little bit more for it. And all those things kind of add up. So it makes sense when a TV goes out to spend $400 to replace it, because without it, it just makes your listing less and less and less.
Yeah, no, and like you said, that's so true about the details, right? On its surface, you don't really think about, oh, maybe I should have this headboard, or maybe I should have this particular, shade of white or gray or whatever it is for my crew to clean it up. But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so we enjoy it. It is a job. I don't manage the properties hands-on all the time. Obviously we're not cleaning our own properties. And so it does create a job. I have a friend of mine that's a real estate developer and builder, and he tried this years ago, and it worked. It cash flow for him, but it wasn't part of his business model. And so he told me, he was like, at some point you're going to get tired of this. You're going to get tired of dealing with issues with your Airbnb. And he was absolutely correct. I told my wife a couple nights ago, I don't even want to look at the Airbnb app anymore. So let's get XYZ person to manage that. But the properties cash flow enough income to be able to pay somebody to manage everything. So they work out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one of those things that I think, you were talking about time management, right? Just knowing, what's worth really going head first in, and then also knowing, hey, this should be delegated, right?
Exactly. And so, like we talked about earlier, I do run a business, and it demands my attention, and Airbnb is not my source of income that is going to provide my lifestyle. And that being said, the Airbnb market does become flooded. It is becoming flooded. And so in the long game, when the demand or when the inventory, like regular real estate, when the inventory increases, then the price gets lower. And because I own these properties and don't have mortgages on them, and I'm not doing rental arbitrage, I'm able to stay in that long game harder and longer than the next guy can, because the house next door can be on Airbnb. but that guy might be renting that house for $2,500 a month, and he has to clear that much money at least to make a profit. And so if the market becomes flooded, then we can lower our prices and still stay in business, and essentially choke out our competition. And to me, those are things you learn when you're in business. You learn all those things as you're competing in the world of business, and you take what you learn and you apply that to the real estate world. You should always win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It kind of seems like, regardless of whether it's for your servicing company or whether you're doing real estate, it kind of seems like a lot of your lessons along the way, they all kind of feed each other.
They do, and those are lessons I call those hard lessons that we learn coming up. I'm a native Houstonian. Interesting, my parents are native Houstonians, and so are my grandparents, and so Houston is home. I personally, don't have any higher schooling behind me, and so all those things that I learned, I would kind of compare that to how athletes say, you take a span of little wins and you put them together to win a championship. And so you take all your little wins, you take all your little losses, and you learn from them. And as long as you keep to push in that direction, then professionally you will always keep increasing.
Yeah.
So, and it's proven itself throughout my life. And I'm still relatively young. There's still a whole lot more in the bag to go. Yeah. And so like Tom Brady, he's still playing. He's 47 years old. I want to play this game until literally I can't walk anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot to be said for that, right? I can tell you're passionate about it. Obviously, walking in this house, talking to you, hearing a lot of the verbiage you're using, a lot of the strategies and ideas you have. To me, it's inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, man. And we try to be sources of information for everyone that comes around us. It's not a secret. We're not holding it in. And I say we, I'm talking about me and my wife. Yeah. We're not holding it in and saying, this is our baby. Airbnb is an open social market. Anyone can try it. Real estate is an open market. Anyone can jump into being an investor. Yeah. It just takes a little bit of knowledge. And so my advice to anyone that's watching, or anyone that's listening, find out what it is that you want to do. If you want to be an electrician and own the biggest electrical company that's out there, follow the guys that do that and repeat what they do. If you want to be a plumber and have the biggest plumbing businesses out there, or you want to just have good jobs for yourself, find the guys that do that and do that. Like in the Houston market, you want to be a developer, find the guys that do that for a living and are great at it. Like if you want to learn more about Airbnbs and arbitrage, and the new wave is now built for Airbnb or built to rent, and I call them built for Airbnb, and they're taking complexes, and instead of regular long-term renters, you turn them into short-term rentals. Yeah. And so follow the guys that are doing that. There's a guy, he's a friend of mine, his name's Tajani. Follow him, yeah. See what he's doing and learn from them, because they're not hiding information. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It sounds cliche, but don't reinvent the wheel, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said, whether you want to do electrical or any other facet of real estate, you may as well try to add value and see how you can help out, and someone will help you.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. Well, is there anything you haven't said thus far? Do you really just like to hit home for us?
When it comes to entrepreneurship, it's a word I feel that's loosely thrown around these days. We've all gotten through 2020, and we've all gotten through what we call these times, and things are different. The market is different. The real estate market, as you well know, is bananas right now, and so I would say that is not a time to shrink back. It's actually a time to press forward, because shrinking back means that essentially inflation will tackle you, and so you can't shrink back. You can't sit there and hold money and try to save it. You got to let those babies go out and work for you. Yeah. And so I tell everybody that ask me, people that you could look at me on the surface and say, "Oh, he's got it all figured out," and the answer is no. We do not have it all figured out. We are trying to put spans of wins together to get to the big win. And so don't hold back. If you want to do it, do it. And this is the time to do it. Information is free to everyone. So like this channel here, Aaron's channel, you can scroll through the channel and there's information for days. I was telling him I've only gotten through a couple of them. And so, I am always trying to learn. I'm always trying to pick up little hints, you know.
Yeah.
And it goes back to being, you know, athletes in the film room.
Yeah.
The guys that prevail are the guys that watch the film.
Yeah.
And so my advice is watch the film, and the film's on YouTube.
Watch the film. Yeah, watch the film. No, and it's funny you draw that analogy. Is, you know, I remember playing football. A lot of the guys, they don't want to watch film. They don't want to study. But, you know, a lot of the guys who perform better were the ones who watched the film.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. You know, well, I've enjoyed our convo here. You know, maybe someone, you know, is here in Houston. Obviously, I know, you know, you said that you, your parents, and your grandparents' generation, all native Houstonian, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding there, folks. I mean, you know, if someone is here in Houston, another part of Texas, another part of America, and they wanna connect with you, you know, where can we find you?
I think personally the best place to find me is my social media page on Instagram. It's Josh in Texas. It's the letter N, so my first name Josh, the letter N, Texas. And essentially, you know the saying, everything's bigger in Texas. And I try to live that way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can find me at Josh in Texas on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. You know, well, you know, as I said before, you know, I've really enjoyed our convo, getting to know a little bit more about you and what you do with Airbnb. And I'm real excited to see what you're going to do in the future.
Cool. I look forward to it too. Look forward to your growth as well.
Hey, thank you. Y'all, that's about it here. Signing off from Pearland, Texas. You know, Josh was kind enough to sit down with us and drop some big wisdom here. So if you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Y'all comment. Let us know what you think. Are you in Houston? Are you looking to move to Houston? So we're going to have Josh's contact info linked in the description of the video. So if you're looking to connect with him, he'll be there. And we'll talk to y'all later. Cool.
All right,
What do you think?
That was a good one.
Yeah? Okay.